Stealing someone else's abilities has been a staple superpower throughout fictional stories. Some of my favorite stories have that one scary character that can steal powers, but it's not very often that you get a story where not only three major characters can steal someone's powers, but the way each of them steals powers is very different. When I think of the concept of stealing abilities, I never imagined that a power system would have enough depth to allow multiple characters to use it in unique ways. In Hunter x Hunter, Togashi explores the concept of ability stealing through Chrollo, Kurapika, and Prince Benjamin. This is possible through the depth of the Nen power system, which allows for many different possibilities as long as it adheres to the specific rules of Nen. What makes this special is that all forms of ability stealing shown by the three characters mentioned earlier all have their own unique properties with different strengths and weaknesses. One Nen stealing ability might be easier to use than the other, but it might also be easier to counter. Depending on the situation, it might be better to have one over the other. In this video, I'll be breaking down the specifics of the Nen stealing abilities of Chrollo, Kurapika, and Prince Benjamin, and then compare and contrast the advantages and disadvantages of the three abilities. If you end up enjoying this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel, and support my Patreon too for more videos like this one. The link is in the description down below. So what exactly makes these Nen stealing abilities so different? Let's talk about it. Everybody get your fucking hands up. The first ability on the list, as well as the most iconic, is Chrollo Lucifer's Skill Hunter. Skill Hunter is a specialist class ability that grants Chrollo the power to steal the Nen abilities of others through a conjured book known as Banded Secret. Once an ability is stolen through Skill Hunter, the victim no longer has access to their stolen ability. Using Skill Hunter to steal an ability comes with 4 specific Nen conditions. The first condition is that Chrollo must witness the Nen ability in action with his own eyes. The second condition is that he must ask questions about the Nen ability and have them answered by the victim. The third condition is that the victim's palm must touch the handprint on the cover of Banded Secret, and the fourth condition is that the previous 3 conditions must be completed within 1 hour. Skill Hunter works a bit differently after the introduction of Double Face or the bookmark. Before the introduction of Double Face, if Chrollo wants to use an ability he has stolen, he'll first have to conjure his book, the Banded Secret, and then turn to the page of the desired ability. The book must remain open in his right hand, and he can only use one ability at a time. Because of this, he primarily can only use one-handed abilities from his free left hand. The ability he has stolen is still under the same limitations as the previous user, and the ability is also subjected to the original user's emotions and thinking. The ability also vanishes when the original user dies unless post-mortem Nen or Nen after death is involved. After the introduction of Double Face, Chrollo obtains a bookmark that gives him more freedom in using Skill Hunter. The bookmark gives Chrollo access to any ability on the page it's placed in, even if the book is closed and he is not touching it. Previously, he was forced to hold the book in his right hand and thus could only use one-handed stolen Nen abilities, but this bookmark allows him to not only be able to use two-handed stolen Nen abilities, but it also gives him room to do hand-to-hand combat. The bookmark can also be placed on a different page than the one currently open, which gives Chrollo the potential of using 2 stolen Nen abilities at the same time. Next on the list is Kurapika. Steal Chain is the ability of Kurapika's index finger and grants him the power to steal one of the victim's Nen abilities. Steal Chain is shaped like a syringe, and when it pierces the victim, it drains the aura and steals one of their Nen abilities. Draining the aura leaves the victim in a state similar to Zetsu, and it seems to be very painful. Once the ability is stolen, the target can no longer use their Nen abilities until it's returned. It seems like the only condition for using this ability is to pierce the target with the syringe. The death of the original owner does not result in Kurapika losing possession of the stolen ability. We are currently still unsure how post-mortem Nen would work if it activates after the original user dies, but we can assume that similar to Chrollo, it can potentially make the stolen Nen ability stronger. Stealing an ability does not mean that Kurapika would know how to use it. In order to complete the ability stealing process, Kurapika used Emperor Time to create another ability called Stealth Dolphin. Stealth Dolphin comes with a syringe and is visible and audible only to Kurapika. He can equip the stolen ability and inform Kurapika on the ability's name, functions, and conditions. Kurapika can then use the ability for himself or loan it to someone else by stabbing them with the same Steal Chain. If he chooses to loan the ability, a listening device from the dolphin teaches the new recipient how to use the stolen ability. The stolen ability is powered by the aura of the original user, so the ability's power output is kept the same even if used by a non-Nen user. When non-Nen users activate the powers loaned by Kurapika, they will be able to see aura and have the aura nodes open, which can turn them into Nen users. The Stealth Dolphin can only carry one ability at a time. Kurapika can only steal another Nen ability after the currently stolen ability is transferred from the carrier syringe. Transferring abilities do not allow him to exit Emperor's Time. He can only call back Stealth Dolphin and exit Emperor's Time once the stolen ability has been activated. The stolen ability can only be used once and then is returned to the original user. Emperor's Time will remain active until all stolen abilities are returned. Last on the list is First Prince Benjamin. Benjamin's ability is a bit more unique than the other two in terms of how he can obtain other people's abilities. Depending on your definition, one can argue his power doesn't necessarily steal Nen abilities, but for all intents and purposes for this video, we will categorize it as a Nen stealing power. His ability is called Benjamin Baton, and it allows him to steal and obtain the Nen abilities of Nen users who have sworn fealty to him. He gains their ability after the Nen user loyal to him dies. There are two main conditions that has to be fulfilled before Benjamin can take a Nen ability from those loyal to him. First, the Nen user must have graduated from Katkins Royal Military Academy. The second condition is that they also must be part of Benjamin's private army. When Benjamin receives an ability through Benjamin's baton, the stolen ability manifests on his right hand as stars under his fingers. The ability can still manifest even if the original user has their ability stolen. If the stolen ability was active while the owner died, Benjamin retains control over it without it deactivating. We still do not know much about Benjamin Baton in terms of how many abilities he can inherit at one time, but people assume that Benjamin can only steal up to 10 abilities, referring to the 10 fingers that the stars are placed under. In this video, however, we will continue under the assumption that as long as the previous conditions are fulfilled, Benjamin can continuously keep inheriting Nen abilities. Now that we went over how the three major Nen stealing abilities work, we will now go over the advantages and disadvantages each ability has over the other. The main categories we will look at will be activation difficulty, total amount of abilities that can be stolen, total amount of abilities that can be used at once, what kinds of abilities can be stolen, consequences for using the Nen stealing ability, how permanent is the process of stealing a Nen ability, and finally, possible counterplay. Activation difficulty. Kurapika's ability is the easiest to activate and use. He can steal one of your powers by simply stabbing you with the steel chain, whereas Chrollo's Skill Hunter requires far more preparation. Assessing Benjamin's ability is a bit difficult since it activates automatically after one of his loyal men is killed, but I personally believe that it's safer to say stabbing someone with a steel chain is a bit easier than having one of Benjamin's bodyguards get killed. Total amounts of abilities that can be stolen. Skill Hunter has the most potential when it comes to the total amount of abilities that can be stolen. Kurapika can only hold one ability at a time with Stealth Dolphin, and Benjamin can only get abilities through the deaths of his loyal men that have gone through the military academy and are also in his private army. Skill Hunter presumably has no cap on the number of abilities it can hold in the book, Bandit Secret, and it can theoretically steal every ability in the series. Total amount of abilities that can be used at once. For this category, Benjamin's ability seems to have the most potential. Chrollo, even with Double Face, is limited to only 2 abilities, the page with the bookmark and the page that is currently open. Kurapika can only use 1 ability at a time with Stealth Dolphin. Benjamin, however, is presumed to be able to use all the abilities in his arsenal at once. He is already able to use more than 2 stolen abilities at once, which is more than what Skill Hunter can do, and he can potentially be able to use every single ability in his private army all at the same time. This, of course, is not confirmed yet, but even if Benjamin's ability is capped at 10 at a time, it still makes it the best out of the 3 in regards to this specific category. What kinds of ability can be stolen? In this aspect, Skill Hunter has the most versatility in the types of powers it can steal. Kurapika's ability is very close, but it can only steal 1 of the victim's abilities. So if he's facing someone with multiple Nen abilities, there's a chance he won't steal the one he actually wants. Benjamin can only get Nen abilities from his men who died, so he has very little say on the type of ability he can steal. Chrollo, however, can steal any ability he wants as long as he can succeed with the Skill Hunter's Nen conditions. Consequences for using the Nen stealing ability. Kurapika is the only ability that has a major consequence to the user for using it. Since Stealth Dolphin requires Emperor's Time, Kurapika drains an hour of his life for every second it is activated. Chrollo and Benjamin both have no danger to their life for using their respective Nen-stealing abilities, so in this aspect, there is only a loss for Kurapika. How permanent is the process of stealing a Nen ability? In this aspect, Kurapika's is the worst. Chrollo steals Nen abilities in a way that the victim will never get them back. Benjamin obtains stolen abilities through his soldiers' deaths, so they can't get them back either. Kurapika has to return the ability after activating it once, so he can't steal an ability permanently. In this aspect, Chrollo and Benjamin's abilities are both ahead of Kurapika's, but since Chrollo can actually choose which ability to permanently steal, his can be seen as more deadly than Benjamin's ability, despite both of them still being permanent. Possible counterplay. All three abilities are pretty difficult to counter, but I believe that Benjamin's is the hardest to deal with. Kurapika's ability cannot activate if he does not hit you with Steel Chain, so avoiding his Steel Chain is the main counterplay against a stolen ability. Kurapika can only use a stolen ability once, so dodging a stolen ability means he will have to steal it again. With Chrollo, avoiding having your ability stolen without any coercion is fairly easy, but it's also possible to get rid of some of his abilities by killing the original user. Then after death can pose a problem, but it's safe to assume that's a rare circumstance. It's also easier to kill the original user compared to normal since they won't have their stolen ability anymore. With Benjamin, the source of his stolen abilities is his bodyguards, and killing his bodyguards actually makes him stronger, so there's very minimal you can do to stop him from gaining more Nen abilities than just directly killing him. There's also no known way to remove an ability he has stolen from his bodyguards. Due to the fact that his abilities can't disappear, and killing the bodyguards actually makes the situation worse, I believe the counterplay to Benjamin's ability might be the hardest to deal with. In my opinion, I really like the concept of Benjamin's Nen ability. I can imagine that having to fight Benjamin's camp head to head would be extremely difficult for most people. More Nen users are obviously better than fewer Nen users, so even if no one on Team Benjamin dies to give the ability to him, their team as a group will still be very powerful. And if someone does die, their ability gets taken by Prince Benjamin, so it never really disappears. This means that if someone finds a specific Nen ability from Team Benjamin to be very annoying, even if they kill the bodyguard, it does not solve the problem since the ability goes straight to Benjamin and he can still use it. So this cannot be countered unless you kill the final boss, Benjamin himself, or every single Nen ability you deal with from his team will never disappear. I find this such a creative and cool way to set up a powerhouse team like Prince Benjamin's Private Army. There's also a minor character who had an ability that is almost like Nen stealing. It's one of Prince Benjamin's bodyguards, Shikaku, who attempted to steal Prince Hawkenberg's ability. The ability is called Codesept, and we are told that if a Nen ability was to hit his aura screen, he would be able to obtain the Nen ability after it's transformed into a card. We have almost no information on how it works or its limitations, so I didn't include it in the video, but Benjamin now has that ability, so there's a good chance we could see it again in the future. Nen stealing abilities overall has been a great addition to the story, and even though stealing abilities has never been a personal favorite superpower of mine, the way they work in Hunter x Hunter just makes them very interesting, and in the future, I'll absolutely love to get more information and nuances on the way these different Nen stealing abilities can interact within the story. If you end up enjoying this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Also subscribe to my Patreon for early access to more videos like this one. The link is in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.